I did notice this time watching it that I felt like everyone was quite mean. Well, not mean, but like uh, I noticed the sense of nobody really listening to her at the beginning of the film, which I could see was like adding to her frustration and wanting to get away. Because obviously this thing that was happening with the neighbor and the dog was really stressing her out, but nobody really took it seriously until the woman came to the house. But then it was nice to see that everybody kind of defended her when she came to the house, which I guess speaks to how parents can be sometimes. Like they don't really take notice because they've got so much adulting stuff to like take care of, and their heads are full with that. But when it comes to protecting their kids and stuff, they're good at.
I really love Uncle Henry's his response to Miss Gulch uh, when she's like, "Oh, she bit me," and her uncle was like, "Oh, she bit her dog." I love that.
Like winding her up.
And again, that's another example. People always say Dorothy is so meek in this movie, but she tells this intimidating old woman that she's gonna bite her herself. I never noticed that line when I was little, but now it's so funny.
Yeah, yeah, she does actually. Yeah, it's a nice slow like setup and a nice kind of establishing of characters. I feel in like the pace of living, but even in these early scenes, I feel like you can tell that Miss Bulge is having a really great time just being a villain. And I've seen like clips of her with like, interviews and stuff around this time the film was released, and she said how much she loved playing this part. I feel like it comes through in these little moments that she has just being mean.
I think some of the best villain roles are when the actor is just, you can tell they're just relishing in playing evil and being campy and over the top, and it really rubs off on her performance. It's just amazing. In the book, the witch is more or less kind of just another obstacle in the long and winding road of obstacles that the characters face. But in here, she is the main antagonist. She is the main villain. And it's another thing that's representative of how this movie has sort of overtaken Oz and culture, because the witch is such a huge thing in Oz media now, and especially in this movie. You can't really imagine this movie without her, and there's so many movies now especially where it just seems the villain is sort of disposable.
Yeah, doesn't the witch? I feel like the witch comes in quite later on in the book as almost like an afterthought. Um, don't quote me on that, but I feel like you say, yeah, her role is more reduced and it's not as in your face. Like they really hyped up this character, and it was good because as well that's something as well that I missed with films today, like a very clear villain and a heroine or a hero. Um, Whereas I think today, well, especially with Disney films, they kind of keep doing this twist villain where they don't really want to. I can understand the idea of a villain being one dimensional, and if they're just evil, there isn't much of a motivation. But there's something about this kind of time period of having a clear villain to hate and a hero to root for that's quite nice that I don't feel like we get as much now.
It's really interesting how the dynamics of villains in stories have shifted over the years. Um, it feels as if now every villain has this sympathetic, grandiose backstory to make you feel sorry for them, and I do think that often is. It's a great way to make the story more interesting because it has those shades of gray. It's not morally all there, black and white, good versus evil, and it's more ambiguous. And there's more complexity there. But I do feel now it can be overdone sometimes, and I kind of miss when villains could just be evil for the sake of it and just relish in being evil. Nowadays, we get a lot more Dr. Octopus types rather than like Emperor Palpatine types. I just love how in this movie it's just so simple. The witch doesn't have any tragic backstory or anything convoluted. She's just evil because. And you could make the argument that there is tragedy and humanity implied in her character because her sister did just die, and now this woman that is responsible for her death is wearing the last thing left of her sister, but they don't go into this dramatic, overzealous, tragic backstory thing. They don't tell you directly. You kind of have to work for yourself to make that conclusion.
Yeah, that's another thing that I miss in movies now. It's like, th there's, like, lines said here and there in older films where it's kind of subtext and you can kind of think more about it yourself instead of it having it all explained out to you. Because maybe people have different perceptions of why. I always felt like she wanted the slippers because, like, like, the type being the type of person that might have been jealous of her how powerful her sister was, and, like, now she's dead, like, the rights go to her, like, she has the right to these heirlooms, so it's not really. I never got the impression that she was mourning her sister, more the fact that she wanted her sister's power that she'd always wanted, but
No, yeah, I would agree. It was just her being more power hungry, if anything, but I do like how there's room for that interpretation either way, you know?
yeah, but as it doesn't go into it, I mean, she never says that, but I feel like the way she plays the character and stuff, it leaves it to your own imagination, which, again, I feel like in modern films they don't really do, or they try and really delve into the fact of what is the villain's motivation, why are they thinking this and stuff. Whereas in older films, I feel like they used to like leave it to you, to your imagination.
I think that subtlety and that mystique really adds to the everlasting, timeless appeal of movies like this. Whether it's through genuine theorizing or just satire, like some parody show making a joke like, oh, why is the witch evil? I think when people can speculate and kind of have their own theories or discussions and use their imaginations, it really helps movies like this, especially a fantasy kind of movie that relies on imagination and stuff, whether it's an adult kind of discussing the film or children playing and making up that aspect of the story themselves. I think that's a subtle thing that kind of helps movies like this last as long as they do. Whereas now, fantasy movies in particular, they don't last as long and they're not as memorable because of stuff like that. Movies nowadays over explain every little detail. So maybe my favorite part of the movie, which is a very obvious favorite part, but the over the rainbow sequence is phenomenal.
Yes, yeah, I suppose it's very like nostalgic. This song into it as well. This is like a huge song that people love, and like it's a very romantic song about wanting more and wanting to escape. Um, which I think helped it as well in the time that it came out. Um, it was something that everybody kind of identified with. Um,
It's crazy to imagine that it almost wasn't in the movie. I don't even know if this movie would be as popular and as successful as it is without that song because this song really hones in on the message of the movie. It really, without this song in the movie, the message of the story isn't as strong and prevalent. It really details how she feels, and the fact it was almost cut just because people at MGM were like, oh no, we can't have our star in this farm. That's gross. They were kind of looking at it through this lens that everything had to be glamorous. But yeah, it's much more real how the final product is because originally Dorothy was going to be all glammed up and it works a lot better when she looks more real because then there's more of a contrast when she's in Oz because she's a real person, just an ordinary plain girl in these really glamorous and heightened circumstances. I think, especially at the time it was made, this movie could have easily been ruined by executives trying to make everything overly glamorous. So it's a good thing it turned out the way it did. Sure, we get her motivation in the story, but nothing could have emotionally transferred how she was feeling more than that moment. And I would say it has to be my favorite song of all time. It just has this certain beauty to it. I get really emotional every time I listen to it, and anyone can relate to that idea of just looking to the skies, imagining something better. So it's no wonder it's been as emotionally resonant as it has been.
Well, I was just like you said earlier as well. It makes so much more sense to teenagers singing this type of a song because, like, all teenagers want to escape from home. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that whole sequence works as well as it does is because the way Judy plays it, she's not belting it out and just trying to show off her vocals and make it this very over dramatic display. I see a lot of stage productions of the show that I've seen on YouTube. Whoever plays Dorothy always just belts it out, just at the top of their lungs, yelling it out. And I think that can work for this song, but in the context of this movie, it works so much better how she sings it really softly and just very humbly. And Judy Garland easily could have belted it out if she wanted to. And I think that restraint really shows just how smart the people were behind this movie and also is a testament to her talent. Because I think knowing when to belt something out and when to sing it more softly is kind of its own skill in itself. It really does just seem like a young girl expressing her desires. It doesn't seem like some singer trying to, show off their pipes. It works so much better as this gentle, wistful kind of longing.
yeah, it's something I've never thought about, but now you pointed out, I feel like when people do cover this song, they really give it all their all, and it's not. I suppose in this context, it's not needed. Yeah, it, yeah, it's something I've never thought about, but now you pointed out, I feel like when people do cover this song, they really give it all their all, and it's not. I suppose in this context, it's not needed.
You brought up a great point too about the context of when this song was written. I think a lot of the success of this movie had to do with the time it came out, that strenuous era, just after the Great Depression and leading into World War II. I think it's really a sign of the times too, that the theme of this movie resonates still and is still so prevalent. I think in the world we live in, uh, there's still that feverish need for escape and looking to the skies. And yeah, it's kind of telling about how humanity functions, that art that was made so long ago is still so prevalent in its themes. It's in a way it's sort of depressing, I guess, but it's also really amazing how that works. And just how timeless art and its message can be.
Would you say it's your favorite song in this film as well?
I'd say so. I'd say the one that my second favorite would probably be If I Only Had a Brain because of my scarecrow antics.
Okay.
I think it's pretty interesting that Dorothy actively tries to run away, though, especially considering how people complain about her character being passive, that's quite a proactive thing to do. Most teenagers don't actually run away from home as much as they want to. She's sort of one of the only people in that situation who's ever put her money where her mouth is.
Yeah, actually, because like you say, uh, people giving her a hard time about her character, she avidly sees a problem. She's not really being listened to, and as soon as Toto comes back to her, she's like, "Right, we need to go. This is a solution to my problem, and it might not be a practical solution, but she makes a choice and she acts on it, which is really admirable. And I don't. That's not really passive at all.
What's also really interesting to me is when she goes to Professor Marvel, she sort of more or less learns the moral of the story, or at least half of it, very early on.
Yeah, I guess she does because she tries to go back home, doesn't she, straight away?
But yeah, I guess Glinda does say that it's not enough to want to go home and that she has to be grateful for it and go through, this whole experience. Because even when she gets to Oz, she immediately is like, oh, I want to go home. So she really does kind of learn there's no place like home fairly early on. Have you heard about how Professor Marvel's jacket belonged to L. Frank Baum, but they had no idea? They just found a jacket having no idea. I think they found it from some sort of thrift shop or something. They just found it, and it just so happened to belong to L. Frank Baum, and they didn't even know about it beforehand.
Serious? That's insane. And I'm guessing Elfman Bam had passed by the time this film came out. Am I right?
Yeah, he was dead at this point, but his wife was still around, and that's supposedly who verified it was his jacket.
Wow. That's like talking about like things happening for a reason. I was like thinking like she was cast for a reason and stuff. That must be some sort of like eerie higher being. Like I don't know.
I think that's another thing that's helped the legacy of this movie. There's all this out there and bizarre trivia that people can share. How do you feel about the whole thing of the farmhand and Miss Gulch all having these mirror versions of themselves in Oz?
I feel like in I feel like it's a nice kind of trope. I've seen it. I was going to ask you. I wonder if this is the first time it's been done because I know it's done usually in Peter Pan quite a lot, but the person playing Mr. Darling is usually Captain Hook, and sometimes in Alice in Wonderland it's been done before. But I feel like I do like it here. Um, I think I don't know. I don't know if I like it so much now. Like I feel like it is quite overdone now, but I think it's just enough here. And maybe this was one of the early instances when it had happened, so it doesn't feel as done as it does sometimes now. Yeah, I wonder if it kind of leaked over from theatre because I know, like in theatre, just out of practicality, a lot of characters double up on the roles because if you can't like if two roles aren't like huge, like one person will play both characters. So I wonder if it originally kind of comes from theatre and it was like a nod and a wink. But yeah, I think it's nice here in this film. It's not like every single character, like Auntie Em and Uncle Henry aren't characters in Oz. I think they're the only ones that aren't characters in Oz. But yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's easy to criticize things as cliches, and the whole mirror image thing has been done a lot now. But I wonder if this was actually the first time it was done or not. Maybe it was already a cliche at this point. I think you'd have to be a film buff kinda to really know the very first instance of it. But yeah, it's interesting how things can seem more or less original based on how much media exposure we already have. And funny you mentioned the theater thing. I think this movie has a very theater vibe with how the sets look and how we always kind of spend a prolonged period within each set as if it's sort of like a limited kind of background. It feels very much like a set with how the whole movie is structured and with how everything is designed.
Sorry, this time watching it, I was actually counting the sets of the Yellow Brick Road because I was like, how many sets do I think they built? And it seems like literally each scene with a Yellow Brick Road is a different set. I don't know if it is or not, but there's a lot of sets, a lot of time and effort went into this film.
The most impressive visual effect in the movie by far, I think, is the tornado. It looks incredible. It still looks so real, and it looks far more real than any tornado I've seen in any modern film from the last 30, 40, 50 years. It looks incredible. No CGI tornado, not in the movie Twister, not in Oz the Great and Powerful. None of them look this convincing, and I read about how they did it, but it sort of just flew over my head. But it's incredible, and I think people often glorify practical effects and kind of criticize CGI too much because CGI can be a great thing. But yeah, there are a lot of effects that could be done practically that would look better, and this effect is just one example. I think it's just really impressive all the work that goes into making an effect like that, and there's sort of this appeal and this charm to that kind of hard work and that kind of resourceful thinking they would have to do back then. And I think it just looks more satisfying knowing that what you're seeing is real. It's just very impressive. The entire tornado sequence is really well done in general. I think the music is great. The way the tension builds is great with Dorothy just trying everything she can to get into the house and to get into the cellar, just trying to get into any form of safety that she can, and just that desperation and just the howling, thunderous, haunting sound of the twister and the way her dress is flowing up. It all feels very real. It's a pretty intense scene. It also reminds me, one of the theories I hear about this movie sometimes is that Oz isn't really another place. It's simply the real world, but warped because we, of course, have the farmhands turn into Scarecrow, Timon, and Lion, and we kind of have the witch. She kind of transforms into Miss Gulch in a way. It's which it doesn't really make a lot of sense. The whole sequence when she's actually in the tornado kind of is bizarre and doesn't make sense because there's all these fantastical elements when she's not even in Oz yet, seeing all these people flying through the tornado. It's very cartoony, and we're not even in Oz yet, so I always thought that was a little weird.
Yes, this I was gonna ask this actually as well. Do you think that's supposed to be the Witch of the West or the sister that she kills? Because, I mean, the costume looks more or less the same, but I was like, "Oh, is that supposed to be the witch flying around and then she kills it by mistake, or is it supposed to be the other way?" I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too deep into it.
Yeah, I would always wonder that myself. It's done really weirdly. It's like, is Miss Gulch literally changing into the witch, or is that the Witch of the West, or is it the Witch of the East? They just look exactly alike because we never get to see what the Witch of the East looks like. I think they've maybe made merchandise of it, but we never officially see what the Witch of the East looks like. And I always thought that would be interesting, trying to see what she may look like if she's very similar, or maybe she's like polar opposite. I know I talked about earlier how the witch was going to be more of a sultry, seductive character, so maybe the Witch of the East would be like that, kind of the opposite. I don't know. It would be really interesting to see how she's different to the Witch of the West. Generally speaking, though, I think that whole sequence is so masterfully done. The music swelling as she gets hurled faster and faster in the tornado, how she gets knocked out, and then her just sort of panicking while she's being tossed around the house. And when it finally lands, it sort of just abruptly ends. And I love how it's just quiet, no music or anything for so long. And she just very slowly walks out, and you get really immersed and sucked in, wondering what's on the other side. And when she opens it, and it's all color, you can imagine the reaction people had back then. It's so masterfully done because I think a lot of people, more unimaginative people, might have just said, "Oh, let's put the whole thing in color. Let's immediately advertise this." But they did it very methodically and cleverly, and as a result, that scene has lasted so long and is ingrained in so many people's minds people will remember that forever because it was the first time seeing color on any film or TV ever for a lot of people. And I love the music, the score as they play during the scene is beautiful. The shots of Oz are just wonderful. These great sweeping shots of this beautifully designed set. Oz is just a gorgeous place, and they do a very good job of making you kind of the way Oz is designed. They just do a very good job of making you connect to it and making you feel like, yes, this is the place Dorothy wanted to go to. This is the place she wanted to escape in. It's the kind of place you would want to escape to. It's just so well done. And I think, nowadays it would obviously be a lot of CGI and it would be very obviously fake. I think it's just so impressive how they built these sets and took all that time and there was all that handwork. It's just, they literally built Oz and made it man-made. And their work paid off. It looks so beautiful. It's unique. It's just very pretty in general. It looks perfect. And the music is incredible too because it does have a very beautiful, whimsical vibe to it. It's not completely overly happy. It has this kind of eerie feel to it. It sounds a little creepy, which perfectly captures the feeling you would have because no matter how much you want to go to some place that's magical and not like the real world, it would still feel creepy seeing it for the first time, just how uncanny and just alien it would feel.
Yeah, I think this um, scene as well. When I think of Wizard of Oz, I associate it the most with this scene of her being in Munchkinland and this set in particular. And I think it's probably the scene that I watched the most when I have wanted to watch a bit of the film, but not all of the film. I watched like this whole sequence with the song about the witch and the follow the yellow brick road and stuff. And I don't know why. I think this scene I associate most with like my childhood, like in the film. Um, and it's a crazy set with all these flowers. And I was looking at the flowers earlier, and I was just like, they look almost like they're made of glass. I don't know what they're made out of.